Ahead this hour, protesters bring Hong Kong's airport to a standstill as Beijing weighs its response. And will Jeffrey Epstein's alleged victims find justice after the accused sex trafficker died in jail? Plus, we take a closer look at hate crime laws in the United States 2 years after a young woman was killed while protesting against white supremacy in Charlottesville, Virginia. All that and much more right here at the International Desk. Welcome, I'm Lynda Kinkade. We start in Hong Kong, where protests are paralysing one of the busiest airports in the world as pro-democracy demonstrations stretch into the 11th straight week. It's 10 p.m. there right now, and all flights that weren't already en route have been grounded. They descended on the airport in their thousands today following allegations of police brutality against demonstrators. The crowds are slightly smaller now than they were at their peak. And meanwhile, Chinese media have published new video of military assembling in a city bordering Hong Kong ahead of what's being described as large-scale exercises. Well, let's turn now to the live war. Ben Wedeman joins us from inside Hong Kong's international airport. Ben, it looks like it's pretty hard to hear there, but I just want to get a sense of how this is escalating, because we've been hearing that protesters have been using gasoline bombs. It's more widespread this weekend, and as we can see where you are, the airport has been shut down, and the Chinese are calling this, saying that there are signs of terrorism now to describe the protesters.
Yes, we understand in some isolated incidents in Hong Kong itself, some of the protesters did throw petrol bombs, Molotov cocktails. The protest here, however, is of a different nature, largely peaceful. It's a sit-in for the most part, but this sit-in, this protest today was not scheduled until last night following allegations of police brutality. At least 9 people were injured. The police fired lots of tear gas inside a closed subway station, and also they hit a woman, allegedly hit a woman with a beanbag in her eye. And of course, we're seeing a lot of her picture here today, and many people wearing bandages over their eyes in solidarity with that woman. So this was sparked by these allegations of police brutality. Now, the Chinese authorities saying that the protests are showing signs of terrorism is obviously an indication that Beijing is unhappy and concerned about where these protests are going. And it's a not very subtle warning that according to the garrison law of Hong Kong, the Hong Kong government is entitled to request from Beijing the intervention of the People's Liberation Army, the Chinese army, in the event of natural disaster or civil unrest. And of course, that is what's going on in Hong Kong now since the 9th of June. These protests showing no signs of slowing down, and today they have achieved something that they hadn't before, which was to close down this vital airport through which about 200,000 people pass every single day. Lynda?
So protesters, of course, Ben, have a very long list of demands. Is there any indication that as these protests go on week after week, that China will give in to some of those demands?
Well, what we've heard from Carrie Lam, the chief executive of Hong Kong, is that she has no intention to give in to those demands. Now, shortly after the protests began on the 9th of June, she did shelve the extradition bill, which is what sparked these protests in the first place, but she hasn't completely taken it off the shelf. It can still be brought back to a vote at any time. But the other demands, for instance, release of all the protesters, universal suffrage, which is a very sensitive topic when it comes to Beijing, stopping describing the protesters as rioters, and for many of the people, the most important demand, which is the formation of an independent investigation into allegations of police brutality. That demand, it's clear that the authorities here, and no doubt Beijing, have no intention to respond to.
Ben Wedeman, good to have you there at the international airport as that sit-in there continues. Thank you so much.